Welcome to Okun Alpha community, a community that is on the verge of being totally washed away by the Atlantic Ocean, except something is done and fast too to stop the surging ocean. The Nigerian Meteorological Agency has predicted heavy rainstorm for the year, so the people here are hoping and praying that someday soon the efforts needed to protect them will be applied to stop the erosion ravaging their community. On Tuesday, the 19th of July 2011, President Goodluck Jonathan visited Lekki Beach, which is just 4 kilometers away from the Okun Alpha community, the home of Alpha Beach. His mission is to see firsthand the damage 3 ships have wreaked on the surrounding communities. Once upon a time, the rich and the poor used to relax and unwind under the many palm trees that used to be on this coastline. Today, Alpha Beach has lost its appeal and Lekki Beach has also known better days. So the president's visit is a much-needed soothing balm for the broken hearts of the residents here. However, few days after his visit, they are asking questions about how long they will wait before their prayers are finally answered. Their worries are not unfounded. They can count 10 fingers and 10 toes, as well as keep on counting various presidential visits and promises across the country that have not yielded desired results. The Lekki erosion started last year and the situation has gone from bad to worse. There are questions on why the management of the Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency and other government agencies responsible to clearing the waterways and their responsibility. From Earthfile's findings, it is not only the residents of these communities that are disenchanted with how things are. The company contracted to remove the vessels is unhappy with the way the arrangement was made. The ship owners are also complaining that the government agencies do not care if their businesses are destroyed or not. Our research found that in May 2010, the Atlantic Marine Services was awarded a contract to salvage vessels that were stranded on Lighthouse Beach in Takwa Bay on the 13th of February last year. It was a daily hire contract for an initial 10 days, during which it was agreed to use best endeavors to salvage as many ships as possible. The schedule was agreed with NIMASA and the Indigenous Ship Owners Association of Nigeria. After these initial 10 days, the contract was supposed to be extended until completion of salvage of all casualties that could possibly be saved. During the first 10 days, which had to be extended by 3 days to complete the last casualty, the company succeeded in salvaging 4 vessels. They are Arcturus, Penil, Odyssey, and Kentastem. But AMS had to demobilize thereafter as NIMASA did not extend its contract.
Arising from the unfortunate incident of February 13, 2010, which about 16 vessels were washed ashore at the Takwa Beach, we came out with a joint committee with the Indigenous Shippers Association because from our survey, we realized most of the owners of those vessels are indigenous ships owners, which we formed a committee to map out how we can rescue those vessels that are washed ashore. But as you are aware, the issue of removing a derelict or an abandoned vessel that is stuck on a beach has some huge financial outlay, which requires some threshold of approval in line with the Bureau of Public Procurement Act. And we work in conjunction with the ministry to get the requisite approval to enable us to remove those 16 vessels. But in between the execution stage, we had some difficulty with the contractor handling the jobs because of the weather still was not quite supportive, and the contractor could not complete the agreed number of vessels which was commissioned to remove. Arising from that, we have to recourse back to our parent ministry to advise us on the way forward on how we can remove those vessels that were washed ashore. So the ministry to require some level of approval, because when their threshold is above the ministry, they also need to go through the Federal Executive Council. So, and to remove a wreck or an abandoned vessels, there are also a commitment from the ship owner, in line with the insurance of the vessels. So all those issues were gray areas which we could not address, and the issue was being forwarded to the ministry to advise us on the way forward.
Nemasa says 16 ships beached at the Lighthouse Beach on the 13th of February 2010, but there are contrary reports that there were exactly 8 wrecks on the beach between Lagos West Mall, that is the harbour entrance, and Ajaga, which is about 35 kilometers in the west. There are also 4 wrecks, that is Salvi, Ray, Stanley and Carlos, between Bar Beach and Eleko Beach, which is about 50 kilometers in the east. Although not counting very old ones, of which only the mast and engine was visible at low tide. They are located about 80 meters from Bar Beach. Furthermore, Salvi and Stanley were already being removed at the time, while only 2 weeks earlier, 2 more vessels had stranded, that is the Pan-African Trader and Livia, but were swiftly salvaged within 3 days by their owners. Before the storm on the 13th of February, it was gathered that there have already been numerous wrecks on the Lagos State beaches in various stages of decay or damage. But ever since then, the numbers of wrecks quoted in the media or reported by the various authorities, including the Ministry of Transport, have been going up and down but have never been correct. During the next 2 weeks after the 13th of February, another 2 ships also stranded on Lighthouse Beach. They are K-17 and Ebony. Some weeks later, another vessel, Okene Ochuku, stranded at Ibeshi Beach. While all this happened, one of the stranded vessels broke apart and both pieces drifted into the different positions, which again led to a different count of the total number of wrecks. In August 2010, a big fuel barge, Aristus, hit the beach in the east, that is the Mayegun Beach. By that time, Mayegun Beach and the adjacent Alpha Beach had already seriously suffered from erosion caused by the wreck of tanker Ray, which was stranded in early February. Meanwhile, a third wreck, Techno H, which arrived in February 2011, has stranded in between the two, and altogether, these 3 wrecks have caused the loss of millions of tons of sand, houses, estates, palm groves, and other valuable goods. And Alpha Beach has been swept away completely during the process. At the moment, the owner of Techno H has decided to scrap his ship after various attempts to get assistance from both the state and federal authorities failed.
When they come in the morning, the crew come in the morning that the anchors gave way and they were going ashore, I called the master to assist me with their tugboat to hold on to the ship. They did not respond, right? They said that their duty to rescue life. If life was involved, that's what they can do. But since life is not involved, it's only the ship, they don't have anything to do. So I went to their office at Kirikiri. I went to their office at Marine Road. There was no response from them. So I decided on my own to see if I could take the ship back to the water. I tried to look for phone. I went to 2 or 3 companies who said they would be able to do it, but the cost was much for me, which is about 18 million for me to get the ship back to the water. I couldn't get that money. So I met with Lagos State Minister of Waterfront. Severally, we have exchanged letters as how to do about the ship, and I told them I'm going to scrap the ship. They also agreed with me to go on to scrap the ship, but I should make sure that I scrap the ship to the last iron, which I'm doing right now. And I can also assure you that by the special grace of God, I will scrap the ship to the last iron.
Although on his part, the owner of Techno H purchased a vessel many has described as a rust bucket. The vessel purchased in January had not ferried any cargo before it developed a fault in the engine. It was this repair that was being carried out when the calamity occurred. The question is, how could an investor purchase what could not be registered in a nation where law enforcers know the job and do it well? But according to this owner, his papers were processed in Liberia. So I asked him, why didn't he come to the jetty for repairs?
One thing I want to say is that my first lesson is that the mistake that I made was that when I was to get myself involved in repairing the main engine, I should have taken the ship to the jetty. Because if it was at the jetty, anchor gave way, there would have been any problem. But because we were doing it outside bar, deep water, outside bar, and the anchor gave way, so the ship was under the control of the wave. So next time, if I have anything like that to do, I will take it to the jetty.
But do you have your documentation? Because before you can take it to the jetty, you need to have your class certificate and all that, yes, insurance and everything.
Yes. If you have a ship, yeah, right, in marine, if you have, for instance, you have a ship that is having problem, you can write to the MPA, you can write to the NIMASA that my ship is also area is having problem that we need to get that ship in. They will assist and get the ship in.
Even without documentation?
Documentation is for you to write to them. If it's emergency,
okay, if
it's emergency, you write to them. When you write to them, they approve it for you, you take the ship in. So this ship is registered in Liberia, okay, right? And is under West Africa coast. What I need to do is not to register it again in Nigeria. It's just to get permit, working permit to enable me work in the Nigeria waters.
Shipping is an international threat. Every ship owner has the freedom to register a vessel in any ship registry. But NIMASA, being the host of the Nigerian Ship Registration Office, encourages ship owners to register into our flag because there is an advantage in rating a country as a maritime nation. When you have a higher tonnage in your flag, it helps it increases your recognition in the categories of the maritime nation. So we encourage ship owners to register in our flag. However, since shipping is an international threat, every ship owner can register its vessel in any flag, in as much as you meet the safety requirement of the vessel. That is why for every vessel that comes into our maritime domain, we conduct what we call port state control, irrespective of the ship she's flying. Port state control is the checklist that we check on the vessel to ensure it complies with safety of navigation. Then on the issue of purchase of a ship, before even the ship is registered, you must meet requirement, the same requirement of the port state. The vessel must be in class. The ship registration office must check that the vessel is in class. How do you check that the vessel is in class? A classification society must give you a certificate after conducting survey on the vessel. Then the regulation also stipulates that the maritime administration must also inspect the vessel and ensure she's in class before you purchase the vessel.
Although NIMASA boss justified the actions of the ship owners in terms of registration, it is noticed that not all ships on Nigerian waters can pass the litmus test required for registration. There are insider information within the industry that a ship can be bought at almost scrap value overseas. Then the owner can acquire a bogus service certificate as well as protection and indemnity papers, without which you cannot have a crew on board. Some even employ poorly paid and poorly trained crew members. Unfortunately, no one will own up to this allegation. With all these wrecks that we have all around, in some ways, NIMASA knows that some of these vessels might not be in class. Is it safe to say that is why you've not done anything about them, really?
Any vessel that is not in class cannot trade. And if she's not in class, we have to give her a detention order. And that's why you find out a lot of vessels littered around the fairway buoys, because they are mostly vessels that are not in class, and they don't have where they will be bad. So most of them go to the fairway buoy and drop anchor at the fairway buoy. That's why you find a lot of those vessels littered around the fairway buoy. They are mostly not in class. And if she's not in class, she can't trade. She cannot go to any port because she will be detained.
So could it be when they were washed ashore and they are now wrecks, could it be because most of them are not in class, or they are not in class? That is why NIMASA is not doing anything about them, because they don't have insurance for it. Is it safe to say that?
You see, when there is an unfortunate incident, which I'll call an act of God, I don't want to create alibi for such kind of incidents, because it's just unfortunate that we had a storm with a squall that washed vessel. So even if the vessel is in class and she passes through that storm, she will still face the same condition. That's why I said I don't.
Insurance will have come in anyway, and then we'll have saved it.
Yeah, okay.
So it's saved that. That's
yeah, but again, I want you to understand that when you have an accident,
yeah,
anybody, even the newest vessel, would have been subjected to what happened that day. Okay. So I don't want to bring the issue of class or no class that led to the washing ashore. It was a storm.
Fola Badmus, one of the owners of the stranded ships in Takwo Bay, is a businessman based in England. His vessel MTFK Badmus is one of those left behind at the Lighthouse Beach. The agreement AMS had with NIMASA, which was actually reached in a joint meeting in the DG's office in the presence of former Director General of NIMASA, the Executive Director in charge of Marine, the Assistant Director in charge of Finance, and Assistant Director in charge of Legal Activities at the agency, the President and the Secretary of the Indigenous Ship Owners Association of Nigeria, and some others, was to remove ships in a certain order. The order was mainly determined by the state of the tide, as AMS, the company, had to work according to the tides. According to that list, MTFK Badmus was number 5, and it would have been carried on immediately if only the contract was not stopped.
When it all happened, our president, Chief Jala Kwamo, contacted NPA, Nigerian Port Authorities, and all that, and other departments, and they were meant to immediately do some emergency rescue operations, of which they failed to do. And they have indeed, the agency, the departments involved, they've agreed and they've accepted. So that is one of the reasons why they opted to remove 6 vessels. And the 6 vessels, they said, are worthy enough to be removed, because it cost them a lot of money to remove each of the vessels. Okay. But my concern is, my own was number 5. I'm very particular about my own and, of course, my other colleagues. Mm-hmm. So why did they stop the operations? Either there's fund or no fund, right? I am concerned. Mm-hmm. Because all I have in my life, I've invested into the business. Mm-hmm. And I've been a concerned Nigerian in diaspora. Mm-hmm. I have been desperate to repatriate my investments into Nigeria, into the Nigerian economy, because I am Nigerian. If that has always been my interest, why then did the government refuse to show me sympathy at any level?
His ship was purchased in Liverpool and, according to him, was in class. FK Badmus was hired to oil traders while on Lagos waters. The storm of the night of 13th of February 2010 washed it to the Lighthouse Beach. Today, the ship has been vandalized and its recovery will take over 500 million naira. 11 people have been arrested aboard his ship and have been detained in both the Kirikiri and Ikoyi prisons. The ship owner laments the shabby treatment of genuine businessmen in Nigeria, but his greatest regret is not updating his documents.
My insurance policies have to be updated in every area of my life, be it my home insurance, my life insurance, my car's insurance. So I have learned a lesson to always update my insurance policies. That is number one. Then number two, I have learned that there is no hope in the standard of life in any third world nation. Nigeria is, of course, a third world nation.
In a regulated maritime environment, if a ship has become a wreck, the receiver of wrecks, which in this case is NEMASA, is responsible to determine if the wreck causes any danger, that is to navigation, the coast, other ships, the environment, human life, and so on. Once this has been established, and if the owner is not capable of removing the wreck, the authority will have to either mark it if that is enough to avoid further accident, or if that is not sufficient, remove it or cause it to be removed by the responsible party, that is the owner, to avert danger to the general public. In the first instance, the receiver of wreck, which is the NEMASA, will ask the owner to remove the wreck. If the owner of the ship cannot be established or the owner is not covered by insurance and does not have the means to remove the wreck, then the receiver of wrecks will have to step in and take action to remove the wrecks. According to insiders in the industry, the particular problem here in Nigeria is that the receiver of wrecks does not observe this responsibility. According to them, NEMASA prefers to claim that owners could not be established and there are no funds to remove the wrecks. During the recent years, this has caused the Lagos state government to take action to raise the funds for the removal of wrecks that can cause erosion along the coast. Unfortunately, the number of wrecks has increased so much that even Lagos state is unable to raise the required funds. Wreck salvage operators believe that all of the wrecks can be removed, even though not all of them need to be removed. The cost of removing a wreck is determined by various factors, but in general, it can be said the earlier action is taken, the cheaper the removal will be. As most of the wrecks have been there for years and many have sunken deeply into the sand, it will be very expensive to remove all. Many are canvassing that funds should be made available, that even asking for the ecological fund to remove those wrecks that cause danger to the environment. As none of the ships seem to have any cargo or fuel on board, the main problem is the erosion caused by some of the wrecks. These are the 3 wrecks at Alpha Beach. The ships are Ray, Techno H, and Aristus, which are the main cause of the erosion at Alpha Beach. The Carlos is responsible for the erosion at Lekki Beach, Al Zainab at Agaja, and a few others along Lighthouse Beach. At the moment, there are many things amiss in the Nigerian maritime industry. Some will say there are too many to list. Operating and managing ships and succeeding in this extremely complex and difficult industry requires more than just some training on board and a degree from a university. They say it requires a lot of experience, know-how, a lot of money, and an enabling environment, both physically and technically, as well as legally and politically. The industry watchers say none of these requirements is available or made available to allow the industry to grow and develop in Nigeria.
We'd love to hear from you. Do you have a comment or questions? Do send them to us by email on file@channelstv.com.